What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope that you guys are enjoying this beautiful Easter weekend. Let's get into the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion part 2. It picks up where part 1 left off. They actually introduce Jennifer Tilly and Kathy Hilton. It shows their introductions to the set, so they were the friends of this season. And I'll get into them in a little bit later, but part 2 opens up with Kyle and Garcelle. Just Garcelle saying that she largely felt unheard, unwelcomed. No one smiled at her. She said that Kyle wanted to talk about Morgan off camera, and Garcelle is somebody who is very direct. She's not confrontational. She didn't read the girls like I would have, for instance, especially Dorit and Erica. Maybe I would have read them down, okay, them coming at me sideways. But Garcelle, she didn't do that. She's very classy. And she just said that she thought that Kyle speaking to her off camera was disingenuous. And so she felt, pretty hurt about it. She also didn't like the fact that, Bose was essentially being Dorit's spokesperson. I mean, she's pretty much said, Bose, like, don't be Dorit's spokesperson. And I agree with her because Dorit is somebody who, when she first came on Beverly Hills, she was speaking with like this really weird accent and she was basically hiding behind her husband. And now that her husband is, just, he's pretty much shading her on social media, PK is a mess and a half. Like, he is a piece of work. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Trina Braxton, her new husband. He's really toxic too. And just like really shady, and he's really demeaning to her, and the way that he talks to her is just really negative and borderline abusive. That's what PK reminds me of. And PK is also an alcoholic. It's a mess. So they're talking about when Kyle and Dorit's friendship. She said when they were public, she said that Kyle said that Dorit exaggerated their friendship. Listen, I get it, that Kyle and her sister Kathy, right? They come from the Hilton dynasty. So Kyle is, like the big man on campus, so to speak, but the queen bee of the group. But the way that I appreciate Garcelle not wanting to kiss up to Kyle, because Kyle is, her husband is outside just doing his world tour, essentially. Um, her whole identity is wrapped up in her family being, a mom and a wife. And she did, she took wife out of her Instagram bio. But listen, Mauricio is for the streets. He's out there in Greece, Europe, doing his thing. So Dorit and Kyle, their friendship, Kyle's like, I was honest. I mean, I feel like it was exaggerated. She's not going to try to really be friends with Dorit. She doesn't see it for Dorit or Sutton, to be honest. And you could see that when Sutton invited her to Augusta. I feel like, you know, Sutton is kind of chasing Kyle, and Garcelle was looking up to Sutton, and it's like, okay, well, who was there for Garcelle? And eventually she got it on the third part and left. But yeah, they don't want to bring out any of Kyle's, dirty laundry with Morgan. It's like, girl, just like Garcelle said, be who you are. Like the fact that she brought Morgan on the show and she doesn't want to have anybody, comment on Morgan. Like Andy says, that she was a singer, she's a public figure. And Kyle's like, yeah, but she has anxiety. She doesn't want the scrutiny. Like, okay, well, that comes with being a public figure. Like, that comes with putting yourself on a national platform. Like, you knew you were essentially going to be associated with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I guess she just didn't expect the scrutiny, but the game is the game. So Andy's like, well, you got to take the good with the bad. You get the increased sales and you become a household name, but you also have people scrutinizing your private life. That's just what happens when you're in the public eye. And then I also appreciate Andy saying, you guys putting out a music video out like that, insinuating that you're lovers, I mean, what do you expect people to say? Like, I'm glad that Andy and, some of the other women, Garcelle, are calling Kyle out because she's somebody who throws rocks and hides their hands. Like, she doesn't want any type of scrutiny or any type of questions about her life. And listen, I get she was raised, in a very privileged position, born and raised in Beverly Hills, very powerful family. But girl, you put yourself on this show, you have to appreciate that people are going to be curious and want to know about your life. Okay, then it goes back to Kyle and Dorit. They were looking for accountability with each other in regards to, their friendship. And like I said, I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. They will disparage and, just highlight everyone else in regards to their shortcomings. But when it comes to them, especially Kyle, they don't want to hear it. So them going back and forth with the lack of accountability is laughable because to me, they're the same in that regard. Okay, so then the next segment, they are discussing the text and her texting PK. And, they go back in earlier seasons and they're discussing, PK's knowledge and his relationship with Kyle. In my opinion, I feel like it will be inappropriate to text someone's husband, especially if you're on the outs with the wife. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like Kyle was, doing her passive aggressive thing and she was trying to get her lick back with Dorit, which is really unfortunate because PK, to me, I'm like, okay, he's not a prize in my situation. And she keeps going back and forth with, her relationship with Mauricio. That's not even completely finished. They haven't, like, neither one of them have filed for a divorce. And she's kind of stuck, it doesn't make sense to me, but I feel like she really wanted to hurt Dorit for whatever reason by texting PK. So then they, go back through the early episodes in the season where Bose is pretty much trying to advocate for Dorit, saying, they want you to show what the text says. Because Kyle lied and said that her relationship, her texts with PK are memes and jokes. And her telling him, that she was going to keep his secrets. I was like, girl, listen, Alicia Keys, that's not memes. That's not memes. And there was nothing funny about you telling a grown married man that you'll keep his secrets. Like your secrets are safe with me. No, ma'am. No ma'am, no ham, no burger. And if Kyle is going to do one thing, she is going to dramatically run out of a venue. Do you hear me? She was crying and acting a fool at the wellness retreat that Bo set up for the girls. And she's like, I'm not going to be out to be somebody like I'm. And I'm thinking, like, they're just calling you out on what you did. Like, that you're dead wrong. You did it as a lick back to Dorit. And to be honest, I feel like, and I haven't been covering Beverly Hills long, but I do remember that one clip where Mauricio was like pulling, Dorit's ponytail very seductively, and I think she was flirting with him in earlier seasons. So, I mean, I kind of get it. I do feel like, again, like it's inappropriate, it's passive aggressive, them going back and forth. But Dorit is like, can you understand how effed up that is? There's a lot of f bombs. On this version. I'm watching or streaming on Peacock app. I was like, y'all are doing the most. But anyway, Kyle, like I said, she's petty and passive aggressive, and that's why she did the whole, text gate with PK. Because there wasn't memes, it wasn't jokes, it wasn't funny. And yeah, it was just a dig at Dorit to get under her skin. So Andy pulled the audience, and I'm glad that he did because I feel like Kyle needed that wake-up call. He pulled the audience and asked did they feel that the texting with PK was appropriate, and of course, majority of them said no, and they're right, and Kyle knows it. It was written all over her face. She was dead wrong for that. I will say the one funny thing I found through this part is Kyle kept dropping her dang on Crystal. Like she dropped it all throughout the episode. It was hilarious. They're like, "Oh my goodness, it's bad juju," but the crystal would not stay in Kyle's hands. It was hilarious. Okay, so then after Dorit tells Kyle that she just wanted her to be open and honest, they get to Bose, and on the Hot Mic podcast, they ask Bose, did they think that Kyle was lying about the text, and she's like, yeah, she's a liar, and basically, she's like omission to her is lying, is another form of lying, and so um, yeah, listen, I'm here for it. I feel like Kyle is somebody who has not had a mirror, you know, um, shown. She's not had her behavior reflected back to her. And so I feel like this reunion is a rare one because Bose, didn't hold back. Dorit didn't hold back. Garcelle didn't hold back. The other ladies did, but that's okay. I feel like it was enough to give her some semblance of self awareness so she could do some, at least ruminate or think about what they said. Because Kyle said that, in the past, she thought that PK was a better friend than Dorit and that she thought that texting him was okay because, they weren't speaking. That's backwards. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not good with the wife, you shouldn't be, good with the husband. So it was a mess. She said that, when Jagger, their son, Dorit and PK's son, was in the hospital, that she texted PK, which, okay, that's fine as long as she would have texted Dorit as well, and she didn't. And that's where she dropped the ball. And so Dorit lets her know, listen, just because you're texting my husband doesn't mean that he doesn't tell me everything, because with couples, pillow talk, they talk, they're going to tell each other everything. So Kyle said, that when she went back to her room in Oceanside and she called PK, she said, it was just really huge drama. And they asked her, they're like, listen, would you feel the same? Like, would it be okay with you if Dorit was texting Mauricio? And she's like, no. So hopefully that got through to Kyle that it's not cool to text other people's husbands, especially when you're not getting along with their wives. That doesn't make sense. So, and, he ends it and he's like, how do you guys move forward? And so Dorit says, listen, I want to sit down, no cameras, none of the ladies, no Andy. He made this hilarious face, but it's true. I really feel like they need to sit down, just the two of them, and talk things out and hash out their differences. That was a cute part, though. Okay, so in the next segment, they bring on Jennifer Tilly, and they, show her throughout the season. Just she has like all this ridiculously expensive jewelry, and like it's one of the most important pieces in American history, or at least with jewelry, like a star-studded belt buckle necklace, and they show that she has like the Louis Vuitton boat that was designed by Pharrell and all her different jewelry, and she was really impressed that Erica knew a lot of the designers. But I mean, she keeps all her jewelry in the bank at the vault, which is smart. Holla at your girl Dorit, PK. um, but yeah, so Jennifer Tilly, they ask her how does she like it, and she's like, I've always been a fan of Housewives, but it's a lot different when you're in it. She's like, there's a lot of yelling and screaming, and she's like, it's really real. And then they show her with the snacks. Jennifer Tilly, just one thing she gonna do. She said she loves candy and she always keeps candy with her and snacks. Like even when this episode began, and they brought her on the set to get ready, she asked for coffee and then they had like some maple donuts for her as well. So I'm like, girl, that's a lot of sugar, but if she likes it, I love it. I'm sure she can probably afford exceptional health care. So go ahead, girl. Okay, so the next segment they bring on Kathy Hilton. If you guys know, Kathy Hilton is Kyle's sister. They ask about Kim Richards. Kim was in earlier seasons, how she's doing. And I read that she was on a psychiatric hold, which is heartbreaking, I believe, in Florida. So my heart goes out to her. Season one, Kyle called Kim an alcoholic to her face. And again, like I said, that's heartbreaking. Um, and their relationship has been pretty, a pretty roller coaster. But I think that hopefully, like, you know, Kathy and Kyle were saying that she's doing better than she has been in the past. And I feel like, Kim, I think Kim and Kyle, but I do know specifically Kim, they were Hollywood actresses when they were like really, really young. And just listening to, even Drew Barrymore talk about how difficult it was growing up as a child actress, how they had access to all these illegal substances and no real adult guidance or supervision. Because even Paris Hilton, which is, Kathy's daughter, Paris Hilton talked about how, I think it was just her, it wasn't her sister Nikki, but how she was forced to go to one of those like teenage camps for rebellious kids and how just horrific the conditions were. And I'm not even talking about like just horrific for Paris Hilton, because I know people were like, oh, Paris Hilton is really bougie and stuff. But no, I watched a documentary, and I was listening to, just some of the kids on YouTube talk about their experiences with those type of, teen camps, boarding schools, and all that stuff. Well, not necessarily boarding schools, but, like um, reformatory schools. That's what I was thinking of. And they were really bad. Like they were really bad. So Kim, I don't know if she is trying to cope with whatever she had to deal with, growing up as a child actress in Hollywood, but it's definitely not easy because Drew Barrymore has been, very open about her struggle in the past with that. So yeah, my heart goes out to Kim Purse. I hope that she is doing better. She is out of the 5150 and out of the hospital now, as far as I know. But they said that she's doing better, and hopefully she can just take it one day at a time. So, so they talk about how messy Kathy Hilton is, how she's the originator, and I feel like she is because Kathy said, the PK, he looked like he was 56 10 years ago because of the weight from the alcohol. I'm like, this girl, Kathy, she is somebody who they showed when she was on the runway, and the model was actually walking down the runway, and they're like, Kathy, like she's so oblivious. But I guess when you come from long money like that, you do not have to be self-aware, because she is just in her own world, in her own Hilton world. Like she brushes her teeth with an eyebrow brush. Oh my goodness. She said that, if she has something in her teeth, she has dry lips, she'll use like just an eyebrow mascara wand. Hilarious. Do you hear me? She is hilarious. So then they show a clip of when Erica was on Watch What Happens Live, where Andy, of course, he's always messy and shady boots, asks who is the biggest suck up to Kathy, and she says Sutton. And of course, Garcelle always goes up for Sutton. She's trying to, stick up for her friend. But here's the thing, I'm really sad because it's like, Garcelle, you're always going up for Sutton and you always have her back, but she always leaves you hanging. Like, girl. And then they talk about Sutton, she fainted last year. She was like, well, hopefully, I have to think of a more creative way to get out of this this year. And then Kathy told her two girls that she was also a lesbian. And Kyle's like, Kathy, can you just let me speak to this? Like, don't try to help. Because Annie's like, you told your two daughters that, Paris and Nikki. These women are nothing if not entertaining and hilarious. And it's like they don't even try to be. That's what's the key. You know what I mean? Like Kathy was so dead serious. She was trying to be supportive of Kyle, but Kyle, I feel like she's not even sure. She was questioning, her own sexuality. And her daughter Portia, she was like, well, she put her arms around her and she's like, we'll support you no matter what. And so Kyle was grateful for that. But I feel like Kyle, she doesn't even know really what she wants, to be honest. I will say though, people don't typically tattoo their initial on someone. Like, she gave Morgan that K tattoo if they don't truly care about them. All right, so in the last segment, they are talking about, Sutton, she had everybody put their hands in together with that sisterhood ribbon. And I guess, she tried, right? The symbolism of it. But her, Sutton and Dorit, they have been going back and forth, just all season. Even when Dorit was talking about Jagger, and and Sutton came in and she's like, she abruptly, interrupted her, and she's like, "Listen, we gotta go," which was rude, right? She was talking about her son, and Sutton could have waited, 30 seconds or however long to not interrupt her so rudely. And then they, show when Camille Grammer was on the show, and that Dorit called her a "see you next Tuesday." So listen, Dorit has a mouth and a half on her. She's so worried about everybody else, with PK and his drinking, which I guess is valid. But she's, way too worried about Sutton and her drinking when we pretty much know her drink order. And she smokes cigarettes, which Andy said, everybody loved, but that's not healthy behavior. Like, who is going to be a healthy role model for their children? So then Andy brings up the wallet comment from Sutton. He asked Garcelle, "Is this, where you feel like you couldn't defend Sutton?" And she's like, "Yeah," and she couldn't. It was indefensible. She talking about my wallet is bigger than yours. Like, girl, that's not even money that you earned. That was from your ex-husband, and that was a part of a divorce settlement. But having money doesn't make you, better than anybody else. And Dorit clocked her on that. She's like, you feel like you're superior to other people because you have money. And so she asked her, well, you didn't think that comment about, you can buy a horse but not a date? You didn't think that was hurtful? I thought that was hilarious. Because Dorit's like, listen, I have love, in my life. It's not like you live like the Queen of Sheba, you live on a main road. Listen, she lives in Beverly Hills, okay? Um, these ladies are something else, just the petty. But yeah, a big bank account does not make you superior to other people. We're all inherently, worthy and valuable as human beings. And so Sutton got upset. She's like, I don't need you to tell me that there's more to life than having a big bank account. I don't, think that I'm superior to anybody. And she's like, well, you certainly act like it. So then she told her she tries to buy people, and she's like, oh, who do I try to buy, Dorit? Who do I try to buy? And she's like, who do I try to buy, honey? And Dorit's like, oh, here she comes. Oh, here she comes. And, that's where the episode ends. And Sutton is like staring her down. And Jennifer Tilly goes to Garcelle. She's like, this is awful. Garcelle's like, this is terrible. But listen, Tilly had her snacks, okay? She was getting her life. So that was the end of part 2. This reunion was pretty good. Again, it's unfortunate that the next part 3, Garcelle, she's had it and she walks out. She doesn't even make it to the cast picture, but she did what she had to do. You know what I mean? She got through it. She fulfilled her contract, and now it's over. So anyway, you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care, Aces. Bye.